Well, I became a recording artist because it's just been in my blood, it's been in my nature, since a young age. I started out in the live band at the age of 10. I landed the main drummer spot. And by the time I got in the sixth grade, a friend of mine kind of just put me in that mode of freestyling. He kind of started freestyling around me and it gave me that motivation. So I just started taking the situations that I was going through in my life at that time, situations with my family and the struggles we were going through, and just started just putting it to the sound of the beats and, releasing my situation through that. So that's what kind of just sparked my attention with being an artist.
How long did that band gig last for?
The band gig lasted till I was around about 19. And by that time I went to the military. I still would come home and play with the band off and on, but it wasn't like a constant job at that point because I was stationed in different places that, after I got stationed in the military.
And what was the name of the band?
Bay City Brass Band. It's actually a local band out of Mobile, Alabama, where I'm from.
And how did you become a part of that exactly?
Well, my uncle on my dad's side actually was the owner of the band, and I used to just see them practice all the time, and one day I just picked up the sticks and kind of joined in, and he was listening like, whoa, hold on, you actually could play that, and I had been watching. I learned very easily by ear, so by seeing something. If I see it, I can create it in my head and try to reproduce it. So I was able to do that, and then by me being so young, I was more eager to learn. So he could show me things that he couldn't show, like a grown person who's set in their ways and feel like, oh, this is how it's supposed to go, So I was able to excel a lot faster.
So you were self-taught?
Yes, sir.
Did you, I don't know if this was the time, it was the YouTube era or not, but did you watch YouTube videos about it as well, or was it just basically watching the band before you actually jumped in
It
it?
definitely wasn't the YouTube era time frame, I used to just go up to the high schools. We stayed near the high schools when I was younger. By going through a lot of situations, we moved a lot, so we was around a lot of different, areas in the city, and we stayed near high school. So I used to go and watch them play, and Mobile's the home of Mardi Gras, actually where Mardi Gras originated at. A lot of people think it's New Orleans, but it actually originated in Mobile, Alabama. So, I always admired the bands, and I liked the drum line. I used to beat on buckets and cans and pots and whatever, I could find. I put my own little band together when I was a kid, We'd get out of flower pots, dumping people flower pots out and running, to make our own little drum sets, and we'd be marching in the backyard playing around. So, I always had the passion for it and just like the sounds and the beats.
And would your family encourage this or discourage this?
Well, honestly, they really just didn't really pay no attention, I don't feel, Our mama was really busy trying to keep a roof over our head, and my dad was in the military, and, they wasn't together, so, it was just like two separate sides. I always went to my dad's mom's house, which my grandma on my dad's side, every summer, so that kind of helped me shape out to be the person I am. My mom's side, they was more, hood and gutter, and my dad's side, they was more to the, to the books and about becoming something, My mom's side, they motivated too to become something, but, you seen the extra on my dad's side and then see the same thing. So I was able to decipher as a kid, like, which route I wanted to go. But my younger brothers, they didn't get that same situation. They only seen one side, so it kind of came up a little different, and I was able to help them see that view, where, hey, you can be hood, but you still can do things to get yourself out of this situation. Don't get comfortable.
And how do you do that? How do you get out of a situation like that?
You basically just apply yourself, man. You got to understand what you want out of life. you can't focus on what everybody else wants you to do. You know, a lot of people motivated by what the next man say or the next person say. Yeah, you could take that motivation, but you got to do what you want to do. You know, no matter what nobody else say or what nobody else feel. If I would have listened to people, I never would have went to the military. I never would have done a lot of things that I did. I was told when I got ready to go in the military, I was gonna go to war. I was gonna get killed. I was gonna do this and do that. But these same exact people, when I got in and started doing great things, they was like, "Oh, this is my cousin. This is my nephew. This is my homie. He in the military." You know, they bragged about it. You know, once they seen the vision, before they can see the vision, they was down talking it. Now, if I would have took on what the stuff that they were saying, I wouldn't have went in. So that's why I say, you know, you got to just do what you want to do, no matter what it look like, no matter what nobody else say. You got to have your vision for you. So that's how you get out of a situation like that.
Well, the reason why I ask about the encourage or discourage is because, you know, sometimes a family may see their child banging on pots and pans and things like that, and they may encourage it, get a drum set, maybe
Right.
get drumming lessons, things of that nature. And maybe another family might say, wow, this is pretty noisy, this is a nuisance, and hey, enough. So
Right.
just curious how things ended up there.
Right. So, I mean, as a kid, I was able to make my own decisions, you know. Like, I could do what I wanted to do. I ain't have to just abide by no rules like that. Only time I really just felt like I was kind of under rules was when I was at my grandma's house with my dad. So I couldn't stay up when I wanted to. I couldn't cuss. I couldn't, you know, do a lot of the things I was able to do back home, you know. And for a long time, I ain't even used to say sir or yes sir or any of that, you know. Grandma, granddad, like, I always call my mom and dad and everybody by their first name, you know. But my dad told me when I was a kid, he was like, hey man, you can't call me by my first name. You can't call my mom and dad by their first name. I don't know what you do when you at home, but you can't do it over here. So, I mean, I went through 18 years of just saying, hey, your mama wants you, my dad wants you, your son wants you. But for some reason, I couldn't just say dad or mama or grandma. I don't know. But now I understand life and I understand, you know, respect is due to a dog. So, you know, now I speak more respectful.
You have children yourself?
Now I don't have no kids.
Why not?
Right now I'm grinding, I'm pushing myself and trying to elevate in life. And I really want to do it the right way. You know, when I get ready to have my kids, I want to be married. And in order to be in that type of situation, I feel like I need to get everything out of me now. You know, I don't want to be locked in and then I still want to go play around and I still want to do it. Let me get everything out. Once I do that, I can just focus on my life and my family and my kids. I'm building a empire for my family. I want to leave a legacy. I want to be able to put my people in a situation where they can keep my grandkids and their grandkids can derive off the things that I created.
Ever got someone pregnant?
When I was younger, I had one chick that told me years later that she had got pregnant when we was young, but she said her mom made her have an abortion. I didn't know until, you know, we was grown. She told me that. Before then, I had maybe one or two chicks that tried to finesse like they was pregnant in order to try to get pregnant for real, but situation panned out, you know, where it wasn't at, and they was trying to, you know, pull the unprotected setup, and, you know, I just went with it.
And how were you able to do that?
I mean,
how were you able to figure out the finesse? How were you able to prove them wrong?
First, because, you know, one thing, I don't have unprotected sex, you know, so, you know, mistakes happen. Yeah, condom break. But when you pressure in the situation, like, I'm already pregnant, you can do it without it now. Like, nah. We're still gonna run it like this, you know? So, and it's like, if you don't do it that way, then we ain't gonna do it. I'm like, you know, fuck it, man. We just ain't gonna do it. But, you know, later, down the line, their friends and, you know, people close to them were like, hey, you know, she trying to trap you. She see what type of person you is. She see what you got going on. And I always been a young cat with a lot of big things popping, you know. So they tried, but it didn't work. Plus, I'm real attached to kids. I like to motivate kids, and I feel like if I have them right now, I ain't gonna really be wanting to be out here and moving around how I'm moving.
This one particular woman that said, after time had passed, that you did impregnate her, but she ended up getting an abortion without your knowledge. Do you think she was telling the truth?
Yeah. Because I remember the situation, you know. And I mean, I wondered back then, like, was it that? But when, you know, it was just like a one night little situation, you know. I knew the condom broke. I knew, you know, I'm like, oh.
Oh, so the condom broke. You
Yeah.
wore it, but the condom broke.
Right.
Okay. I was trying to see if you were
But,
still
you know,
strong
I was
on
young,
that.
I was still a teenager at that time. I was still in high school. So, you know, like, man, I probably really was probably like 14 then, you know. So I knew it, but she never mentioned it back then when we were kids and never said nothing. So I was like, okay, well, maybe that wasn't the situation.
Did she ever say why she didn't tell you until later in life?
Nah, she ain't never tell me. She just told me one day we was in the club. She was like, you know, you're supposed to be my first baby dad. And I'm like, what? And she like, remember such and such, whatever, you know, because we only had one situation. I was like, yeah. She like, I got pregnant for real. But, I mean, she probably was 13, though. You know, 13, 14. Of course, her mom probably wasn't finna let her have a kid at that age.
What age were you at that time?
I was 14. Yeah, so.
And when you guys bump into each other at the club, were you guys patrons of the club? Were you a club promoter at the time, or you were a recording artist?
Well, I was a club promoter at the time. I owned my own nightclub at the time, but we wasn't in my nightclub. I was a recording artist also, but I wasn't 100% into the just recording. I had businesses I had to run, so I still was tapping into the music thing, but you know, I had to be at the club all the time. So on the days I wasn't open, I'll be at other clubs promoting my music, promoting my brand, and letting people know, hey, we gonna be open Friday, you know, trying to bring more people to my spot.
And seeing how things played out in life, do you wish you would have had that child with her?
Nah, but I feel like if I would have known, I wouldn't have wanted no abortion, you know. But God don't make no mistakes, so whatever was meant to happen, it happened.
Now, when it comes to hip-hop music, how'd you get into that genre of music specifically?
I mean, I grew up in the gutter. I grew up in the projects. You know, that's all we knew. That's all we heard, you know. I didn't really get introduced to no other genres and other flavors of music for real until I went to the military. Although I was in a second line type of band that played second line music, I still wasn't like deep into no other genres of music until I went to the military and started branching off and, you know, networking with different people in different genres. They listen to different things, and I kind of seen that, you know, we kind of pretty much all talk about the same thing in our own ways, you know.
And what other genres of music did you experience in the military?
Like pop, rock, you know. I ain't really too tough on country. I kind of listened to some of the stories or whatever that they told in the music, but, you know, pop and rock, I kind of was able to kind of tap in a little bit to that. So that's where I kind of mimic my style, like a pop, rock, hip hop type vibe with what I got going on.
In terms of hip hop music, was it a certain song or artist that got your attention back then?
Back in the days, I was really heavy on like Boosie, UGK, some local artists too, like rap artists named C-Nile, the last Mr. Big, you know, the people that just told those stories that made me feel like they would, like I could plug my life into it and kind of mimic my style to whatever they was going on or whatever they was talking about in the music. Sometimes I can kind of plug in certain situations and, you know, live my life through their music.
And how did you discover each of those names you just mentioned, their music?
Well, Boosie, he used to come to Mobile. Like Mobile was his second home, man. Like, man, they used to book Boosie probably twice a month sometimes, you know. And people would always come out here, come to the teen clubs and different stuff like that. He was promoting heavy back then in Mobile, Alabama. He wasn't even a mainstream artist yet. So, you know, we just was on his music, his style. UGK, I got into that from my uncle. Rest in peace, my Uncle Brett. He used to bump that UGK every time he used to drop us off at football practice, and I just loved the sound and the vibe that they had. C-Nile and the last Mr. Big, they was local artists from Mobile, Alabama, which I think at the time Mr. Big had got a record deal with the Trial Time record, and he did the record with 3-6 Mafia, Poppin' My Collar, and kind of just gave Mobile that shape, you know, put us in the game a little bit, you know. So, you know, the city was on that. That's pretty much how I got on that. Also, Jeezy too, you know. Jeezy used to come to Mobile a lot of times. I feel like Mobile pretty much broke Jeezy outside of Georgia. We really broke a lot of artists outside of this city.
And when you speak of your uncle, you're talking about on your father's side?
No, my uncle on my mother's side.
And what age or what grade were you when you discovered these artists? Or maybe is there a chronological order to you discovering these artists?
I mean, I just was raised up on them, so it wasn't really no age or no grade. It just, when I started just getting into music and wanting to listen to it and go to stuff for myself, you know, this what I would hear, so that's what I was going for, you know.
Safe to say these artists were your musical influences?
Facts.
And have you ever had a chance to personally meet any of them yet?
I met everybody, all of them.
Did any of them surpass your expectations, or the opposite of that, disappoint your expectations when you meet them? So when I ask this question, you know, sometimes when a person listens to someone's music, they have an image of what they would be like when they would meet them,
Right.
or how they would act when they would meet them. And some, it follows those expectations. Some it supersedes and surpasses, and some it's disappointment.
Well, I wasn't disappointed with none of them. Really, it was great working with a lot of them. Even Young Jeezy, me and my team brought Young Jeezy to my club after he hadn't been to Mobile in years, back in 2011. We had a great show, great turnout. We had a few hiccups. We also booked Gucci Mane too back in that time, you know, when it was kind of heavy with the beef going on between them. We had a situation where Jeezy was supposed to do one date for us, and something happened where he backed out where he wanted to be in Atlanta for Lil Wayne, I think it was Our Music tour or something like that. And it kind of messed up our date, so we kind of had a big little issue at that time, and they was trying to get the money back, but we didn't want the money because our reputation was on the line. A lot of people already didn't believe we was, you know, spending $50,000 on an artist, you know. Being young, coming out of the city and making things pop. So we basically just booked Gucci Mane, you know, instead. But then we got messed up on that show because that was the time when he went to jail. He went to jail right before that show for pushing the chick out the car at the mall or whatever. So we ended up having to get the redo date for Jeezy, but we had a good time. You know, popped it off. And, you know, Jeezy actually was cool. I was a little pissed with him, you know what I'm saying, due to the circumstances of that first situation, because I felt like that was what was going to really just give my club that stand. But, you know, it was a kind of riffraff in the city going around like, you know, they ain't spending that type of money, you know, it's show fake, and then when they come around, he can't show up. Now we got to come up with this excuse. But he still came, he rocked the show. We did our thing or whatever. Shout out to Young Jeezy. We redid the Gucci Mane show too, you know, but we did it in Montgomery, Alabama. Shout out to Gucci Mane. Boosie, you know, he came to my spot a couple times. He also signed a few artists from my city, you know, and so when he came down, you know, to network with them on situations, Young Blue and also JD DeGotti. UGK, a friend of mine, he used to be part of the road managing crew with them, so, you know, I was able to kind of tap in and at least get a view of Pimp C before he passed. Last Mr. Big, he from the city, but he also passed too. We created a good relationship before he passed, and also C-Nile, he popping back into the music scene now. He got a single out right now called Tweaking with Young Blue. Me and him working on a record right now called Act Up. So, you know, C-Nile still got them records you can go back 20 years ago and listen to one of his albums and feel like it's 2020 right now. He just never got a deal or took a situation. I don't know what his personal situation was with it, but, you know, he still got bangers to this day. I still listen to old music.
So we've talked about so many details and you've mentioned so many things here that I just want to clarify a few things. So as far as these artists that were your musical influences that you had a chance to meet, is C-Nile the only one you've had a collaboration with or working on an active collaboration with?
Yeah, C-Nile the only one I'm working on an active collaboration
music-wise
with. Yes, sir.
And then when it came to as far as bookings, Jeezy and Gucci Mane are the only ones that you've actually booked out of this list of artists we just...
Jeezy, Gucci Mane, and Boosie.
Okay, so you have booked Boosie before. Okay. Boosie sounds like there were never any scheduling issues.
Nah, never no issues with Boosie.
What's the most you ever spent on a Boosie show to book him?
I don't know, it's been a minute. I think it was around about maybe 20.
At the time, did you make your money back on that 20?
Of course.
Did you ever lose on a Boosie show?
No, we never lose on no Boosie show.
You've booked Jeezy. Do you remember that amount at the time?
It was like 50,000.
And did you profit in that situation or lose?
Of course, we profit.
And what about the Gucci booking?
It's 50,000.
And did you profit or lose on that?
We profit. But we had some issues after the show. I don't want to speak about it on the camera. But,
okay.
You know.
Now, out of all three...
Not with Gucci people, though. But it was another situation happened after that show.
Oh, okay. So there was a situation after the show, but it had nothing to do with Gucci or his people. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Now, out of all three artists, Boosie, Jeezy, Gucci, which show did you profit the most off of?
I'd say probably Boosie. You know, they love Boosie on Bill, you know. So, I mean, even though Jeezy and Gucci were big shows, but you had a way bigger overhead, and they required a lot more than just a payment, you know. Certain sound equipment had to be there, certain stage setups had to be there. You know, Vice just, Boosie ain't coming with all those requirements. Well, back then, you know. Now I don't know, you know.
Do you remember what year you had actually booked Boosie when it was 20K?
I don't remember the exact year.
What about Jeezy 50K, Gucci 50K?
I know they was back around about 2011. Yeah, sometime in that time frame, 2011, 2012. I got it on my YouTube, so I had to go back. You can, if you Google Young Jeezy Club Infinity Mobile, Alabama, you can see the Jeezy show. I think Boosie and Webby and some of the other shows may be on there. But other people put those up, so, you know, that was the last one I actually seen, you know, probably recent was when we did the Jeezy, the footage from that one. But other footage was put up by other people, so I don't know if it's up or, you know. And I've done so many things over the years, I don't remember exactly what happened before now or whatever going on with those situations.
With the Jeezy situation, clarify this as well. You had booked him for multiple dates?
No, I booked him for one date.
And he wanted to move it because of the Lil Wayne situation.
Right. So it kind of, but it was like the time issue, you know, like right before the show when I don't know if he decided or his team decided, it was just relayed to us that he wanted to be at that event or whatever, a part of that event, but we already had him locked in, supposedly, you know, and it became an issue, you know, and I ain't gonna get into the litigations of how far we had to take it to actually get a new date and, you know, let them know that we don't want the money back, we want the date. Like, these people don't believe that we really booked you, so you gotta come here, you know.
Was this before the video drop era? And when I say video drop era, I'm talking about nowadays in 2020 when an artist does a booking, they'll actually get on social media and do a video drop. So, for example, Boosie, let's say he gets booked, he'll get on video and say, hey, I'll be at this club, so-and-so date, and it's just for authenticity purposes. So a promoter can never say, but it wouldn't get a promoter in as much trouble if a date didn't get booked because you saw the proof here. Boosie said he was going to be here at this club in this city on this date, so you know it's not a lie.
Right. So,
and I'm just using Boosie as an example.
Yeah, back then a lot of people wasn't really too fond of those video drops and stuff like that. They would probably send like an audio drop or something like that from their phone or something, but a lot of people weren't just doing video drops. That's that, you know, 2015 on up type time, you know. This was back, like I said, 2010.
2011, right?
2011, yeah, 2010, 2011.
But Jeezy does end up making that date
Yeah, he actually
again.
made the date and came.
And do you know how long it took before he actually does that?
Probably another month.
Okay.
About a month or two.
A date of your choosing, or?
Think collaborated with our team on a good date.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about the Gucci situation? He gets locked up.
Oh yeah, that date was months out.
Was that a same situation where you don't want the money back, you want him for a date?
Right. I don't think we really just had the option on that one. I don't know if we actually had the option or not, you know, just trying to think back to that time frame, you know, because it's just kind of on the fly, but I don't remember it's like with a negotiation of getting the money back. I remember a negotiation with the booking company that we wired $50,000 to for Jeezy, you know, saying we'll send the money back or whatever. I don't know if this was coming from Jeezy camp or if it was just the booking agency that, you know, books him. But we had to, you know, go through some upper chain of commands to make sure that actually happened.
Has there ever been a recording artist you booked and you lost on? Because these all sound like wins, even with the makeup dates.
Not really. I don't remember really.
I've heard of promoters losing.
Yeah,
on
it's
shows.
A lot of promoters lost, you know, on a lot of shows. A lot of time if we did lose, we'll call a lose basically a break even situation, you know. But for the most part, we did our thing. We had a great team, a lot of people that was part of the team that was networking, and, you know, a lot of times we would split the effort with other, you know, teams too. So it'll be my team, Parker Boy Entertainment, along with whoever entertainment that go in together with us, so we got it coming from two different angles, so it made it easier to promote and push and less overhead on one company.
Less profit too, though.
Yeah, but at the same time, you got to understand we own the club, so we actually profiting on the drinks. We profiting on other things that the other team may get less profit, you know, as far as them putting in on the show, whatever percentage they put in, you know. They may not have put a whole 50%, they might put 25 in, or, you know, whatever the situation is, but we actually were still able to profit in other ways other than just the show.
So let me ask you this then. Let me rephrase the question. When you book Boosie for 20K, that's the most you spent on him in a time period. You book Jeezy 50K, you book Gucci 50K. When you say you've profited in these situations,
Yeah.
was the profit not including the drinks, the bar, the club ownership? Could you have profited without those elements there? If we took that out of the equation?
Yeah, we still
Like if you were just one of those promoters just making it off the door, would you have still made a profit?
We still made a profit. It wasn't a substantial profit, you know, but it still was a profit pretty much at that time. I felt worth doing it, you know.
But the drinks and the bar ownership and stuff definitely made things.
Right, made a great difference because, you know, I don't have to pay a venue and then they still making all the drinks and all the extra money on the side. We were able to capitalize off all that because we own the venue.
Now, just because you don't own a bar anymore, you don't own a club anymore, you don't promote clubs, performances and bookings anymore.
No.
So then I want to ask you this question. And honesty is always welcomed here, but when it came to owning a bar, did you ever water down the liquor?
Nah, we might not have put the what liquor that was supposed to be in there in the bottle at times, but we ain't never watered it down. So basically, long story short, it might have been a cheaper brand of that. You know, if it's a cognac, it may not be Hennessy fully in there, you know. Might be hen and some extra, but it's gonna still be a cognac, so it's gonna be kind of hard for you to tell, you know. But if you bought a whole bottle, then of course you're gonna get the real thing.
Okay, so those were legit.
Oh yeah.
Now,
but we didn't do it all the time. But you know, we get over flooded, and you know, we gotta do what we gotta do. Then you know, that's what happens. Part of the business.
So that's what I was curious on is why implement that, and when would that be implemented? When the cognac wasn't the top shelf cognac it was supposed to be.
I mean, we just got a rush of 1,000 people here. We was only expecting 500, and ain't no liquor store open at 2 o'clock in the morning. You know, and these people still want to buy drinks.
Okay, so it wasn't a common practice for you.
Right.
This wasn't.
It wasn't like we just gonna do this just because. You know, it'll be circumstantial basis.
Okay, I got you.
Or we only got, say we got 10 bottles left and they buying it like crazy, you know. It might be half real and half, you know, a cheaper brand.
But it was always some element of real in it.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
It was never watered down. Is that something, to your knowledge, that does happen? Do bars water down?
Well, a lot of times what they do now that I see, you know, from me being an owner perspective, you know, a lot of times they use the sprayer, and, you know, it's like a water-based ratio that they're using in there, and they kind of water the drink down more than, you know, than it actually being like that. If it's a Coke or whatever, it might be really, really watered down mixed with, you know, the flavoring that's going through that machine. So when they put it in spraying it in the cup, you know, it's watering it down to help, you know, stretch the look out a little bit more.
Did you ever get complaints over this when you would mix the lower brand with the top shelf? Did anyone ever catch on to it?
Man, they ain't never say nothing. They was more turned up. You know, that cheaper liquor gonna get you drunk quicker. You know, so sometimes you gotta watch as much as you know, you don't wanna pour as much. because they might be a little bit too turned, but a lot of times when people get drunk, they just want to get even drunker. So I didn't get really no complaints that I can remember.
Did you ever, just being a patron at another establishment, did you ever, because you did it yourself at one point, would you, aside from the water spritzing, you know, stretching that part out, did you ever catch on to a club like, this drink doesn't taste 100% top shelf, I know what they're doing here?
Man, 90% of the clubs. That's why I always, most of the time, I drink before I go in, you know, or we'll buy a bottle. You know, if I'm just like, it is what it is, you know, whatever, I go ahead. Sometimes I test it out a little bit just to see. Now, I can tell the difference. But, you know, I'm not going to walk around and tell the patrons because I understand it's business, you know. That's how you make your money. If they ain't saying nothing, you know, I don't got nothing to say either. I just don't want to drink it. Or I do want to drink it. I don't got nothing else to drink. I might as well just get turned up. I'm going to just be light on how much I drink because I know the cheaper stuff going to, you know, elevate your situation.
When you say 90% from your personal experience, there's some mixing going on that you notice. Who's the 10% that don't? Is it in a more upscale establishment? Is it more of an establishment that has a good reputation in one city? Is this stuff you're noticing that doesn't happen in bigger cities versus a smaller city like Mobile? Like a Miami or Atlanta versus Mobile? Maybe in Miami, Atlanta, you don't notice it?
Sometimes it's case by case basis, but I feel like it's really like the quality of the venue, you know, and just the reputation. Some people, you know, it ain't just the ratchet clubs. You know, sometimes it is the upscale spots too, and they may not do as much as mixing it. They may do more watering down than mixing, you know, but other spots might do more mixing than watering down. So, you know, I feel like I said, 90% got some extra going, you know, but it's just case by case basis. It ain't really by, you know, what city or nothing. You know, I done been to Vegas, I done been Atlanta, New York, all type of places, you know, and some places they really got the real deal, and some places they doing what they got to do.
But you don't think anyone's ever had fake liquor, or I don't know if there is fake liquor.
I was finna say, I don't think it's no fake
bootleg liquor.
We put moonshine in the bottle.
Yeah.
Nah, I don't think nobody going that far with it unless they probably in the middle of the country somewhere.
And you reference Young Blue and Jada Gotti in this.
Gotti.
Yeah, in this interview. I've had a chance to interview both of them. If people want to see any of those interviews, they could search that in this YouTube channel.
Right.
You also, go ahead.
I was finna say, we actually got Mobile on the rise. You know what I'm saying? I feel like we up next, to be honest with you. You know, we got a lot of artists that's now popping from the city. A lot of artists that are getting record deals. Like, I can name a few, like Flo Milli. You got Rollo Rodriguez, No Cap, Honeycomb Brazy. I don't think he got a deal yet, but he been definitely working with Rap a lot and, you know, moving and making things happen. Pasa the Don with T.I.G.
And Young Blue already had a deal.
Yeah, Young Blue already got his situation. I don't know who I'm missing. Pretty much those cats, you know, they giving the city hope, giving everybody motivation. I'm pushing independently, you know, making things happen. I done personally touched probably maybe 80% of those people that then popped out from the city, you know, some type of way, some type of situation I done had an encounter I done had with them as far as working with them on something or dealing with them on something. So, you know, I done touched 80% of the artists that popped out from the city.
My final question here is, when it comes to the military, a little bit more insight. You said your father was in the military.
Right.
Was it the same branch as you?
Right, same branch.
The U.S. Navy.
Mm-hmm.
And how long did you actually do in the military?
I did 4 years in the military, active duty. I was an IT, top secret clearance. Did my thing. I got in a lot of trouble in the military, but we ain't gonna tap into all that. I ain't get kicked out. I got out, on an honorable discharge. At the end of my time frame, my mom was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison. My grandma was in prison, so I kind of ain't have no choice but to get out and raise my little brothers and sister and kind of take over that situation for my mama, at least until my grandma got out. And eventually, years later, my mom got out and now we going up.
And how long did your grandmother do?
I think that the last time she may have did in between 3 to 5 years.
And you said that was state or federal? I know mother was federal.
I think my grandma was federal though. I think she was federal. I'm not sure with her situation, but I know for sure my mama was federal.
Grandmother on your mother's side?
Yes.
And were both of those cases separate or they were linked?
I think some of the situations were linked and some of the situations were separate.
Okay. Just curious.
Mm-hmm.
And that military contract, it was a 4-year contract originally. It just
right. Yeah,
the time, the
contract.
term, it just expired on its own.
Right.
Okay.
I could have re-enlisted, but I had too much on my plate at the time. So I came home and looked out for my people and made sure they was going at least in our path. Kind of running wild at first, but we came up out of that. We pushed forward and persevered. Not everybody doing their own thing. And like I said, when mama came home, none of her kids were locked up. None of them was in jail. None of them was dead. No situation like that. Everybody, had made their own decisions and went their own paths. But, she didn't have to worry about none of them being buried or in jail. So,
looking back at how everything played out, did you make the right decision by not re-enlisting and handling your business on what you just described here?
Of course, I would never leave my people stranded, Not to say if I would have re-enlisted, I would have had to leave them stranded, but it would have been more stress on me trying to keep them in line. And, like I told you, my brothers, they didn't grow up with the same double side me and my sister did because we got the same father. So, they just was running wild and doing everything at the time. Now they handle business and do things with reasoning and, understand its consequences for your actions.
And when it came to the military and your experience there, this is my final question.
Mm-hmm.
What was the biggest lesson you learned, or what was the biggest lesson you learned, or what did that teach you? The military experience there that you gained.
Okay, the military taught me more to understand that you can't say no. If it's got to be done, it's got to be done. No matter if you don't have the tools to do it, no matter if you don't have the knowledge to do it, one thing about it, you better figure it out. You don't have to like the person next to you. You don't have to be a part of their genre or their cult or whatever they on. But one thing about it, y'all better get that job done. And that's what the military taught me, get the job done. You can't really judge nobody or judge a book by its cover. You just got to do what you got to do and handle the business for you,
And did you make the right decision joining the military when you did? Or do you wish you would have bypassed that whole experience and...
If I would have joined the military, I probably would have went to prison. It was about a 80 to 90% chance, because it was so much stuff going on around me. Not to say that I was doing the things, but I was associated with so many different situations. And I still remember, the police kicking in our door and charging everybody that was 18 and older with different situations. And they grabbed me and they found my military papers and was like, "You about to go to the military?" I was like, yes, sir. It was like, well, you know what? They took the handcuffs off. They was like, man, go ahead and do your thing, you know. And they didn't put that charge on me, which they could have, you know. I didn't have anything to do with it, but you know how that go. You there. So it was situations. I even got in situations in the military too, you know, where I was facing 20 years and also facing 5 years in the Brig in the military, you know, for situations that I didn't do anything, but you know, my association with the people that I was around, you know, had me under surveillance for a year, had police watching and following me, which I wasn't the person handling things or doing anything. I just was associated. You know, they'll see me in the club, see me around, sending informants at me. But that wasn't the type of time I was on. So when they did basically grab me, they had to plant something in order to get a situation to think that I would talk, you know, and you know, it was nothing I could tell them. So I had to face that road and go to trial and beat those situations because first of all, I wasn't guilty. And second of all, whoever they wanted or whatever they wanted, you know, I told them, you got to go do your own job. I don't know nothing about what you're talking about. I don't care if I hang with this person every day. I don't know what they do. I don't know what the next man got going on in their life. I know what I got going. And it almost cost me my military career, but um, at the end of the day, it didn't. And also, the military was about to give me 5 years in the Brig just for catching the cases. You know, they didn't really have to have no evidence of anything. You didn't have to be proven guilty. They felt like you was guilty. You was guilty. But I had one chief that stuck up for me, and he basically put his career on the line. He said, you know, I don't think Mr. Parker is guilty. You know, if he's guilty, you can take my retirement. And they took him up on his offer. And, you know, after I went to trial, got found not guilty. So, you know, he was able to do his thing and retire. But I appreciate him for sticking his neck on the chopping block because they probably going to send me straight to the Brig.
And for somebody that's watching this that's unfamiliar with some of the terminology, what is the Brig?
The Brig is basically like a military prison. So, you know, it's said to be a lot harder than a regular prison. I don't know. I didn't go. But, you know, it's a different stroke when you sign that paperwork. You government property. They own you for that time frame. So, you know, they feel like you guilty. You know, you could fight it or whatever, but man, you pretty much gonna go down if you ain't got nobody really backing or standing up for you.
If you would have lost those, was it 2 trials?
Mm-hmm.
If you would have lost each of those trials, what would you have faced?
I'd have been facing 20 years state time, and also 5 years in the Brig.
Separately?
Right.
One incident was 5, the other was 20.
Right.
Okay.
Separately.
And they were separate incidents, they weren't...
No, it's the same incident.
Oh, the same incident.
Right. The military, they don't got nothing to do with what's going on the outside. You know, so even if I would have been found not guilty on the outside, I still could have did 5 years in the Brig just for catching those charges, you know. They don't, that's what I'm saying, it's different in the military. I don't know how it is now, but back when I was in, like, it was a whole different ball game, you know, like, you don't have to be found guilty or not guilty for them to sentence you to something.
Are you able to share what time period this was?
I say 2007, 2008, some time frame like that. Yeah.
Till when?
When I caught the cases.
Yeah.
Just caught the cases around 2007, 2008.
And you beat it?
Yeah, around 2008. So, well, I would say maybe I don't remember the exact, but maybe The end of 2006, because it did take around about a year and a half or whatever before I went to trial. So, yeah, maybe the end of 2006 or whatever. I know it was at my first duty station. So, yeah, it was around the time when I wasn't in that long. But, they were looking at the type of vehicles I was driving and, me being back in Mobile all the time. I was home every weekend, you know, maneuvering and doing things like I wasn't in the military. So, they pretty much made me the target because it's like, he the only legit one in his family, He could be the one bringing it in or doing whatever and hiding it through, him being in the military. But they could never trap nothing in on me with them having me under surveillance, them sending informants. They couldn't get no information because I really wasn't, making that to happen on that type of time. I really was able to, a lot of situations arise because of the money that I saved up from playing in the band, From the age of 10 to 17, I didn't spend not one quarter, of the money that I made on the side during playing with the band. I also did carpentry work also at a young age. So my grandmother on my dad's side, she opened me an account and I just would give her all the money, And when I turned 17, she told me I could spend it. And that's when I went in, I'm in high school with diamonds in my mouth from driving, and all my uncles were, you know, big into what they was in. So, they had all the fancy cars and all that. So I'd be driving their cars and I had my own vehicles. Got an apartment in like the 11th grade. So, I just was moving on a way bigger level for my time frame. I had the diamonds back before they can put the lab diamonds in grills and before they was able to do all this 2020 stuff they got going on. Like I was in high school where you had to be either a big time dope dealer or somebody who really got some real money to have some diamonds in your mouth. Yeah, so I was in that type of era doing things like that. So people, they basically assume I was selling drugs.
Your uncle was, though, at the time.
I ain't gonna answer that, but you know, my uncles was doing whatever they was doing. I don't know what they was doing. I just know they had the nice cars and they was handling their business on their time. So, like I said, people just assume what they assume.
Uncles on your father's side or mother's side?
Nah, mother's side.